Somebody
money,
else will.
somebody
Yes.
else will. So this is tied to the homeless issue. I mean, regardless we have tiny homes or not, this has to be used. This is our allocation, endowment, or entitlement that we get from state and federal and so forth. You know, this is
And I can also say that when we were first putting this program together, working with Viet and Zolma and talking with the state, they actually were very excited about this program, and we're using this to try to promote it for other cities to use it for the same type of resources. Because a lot of cities were struggling on how to use these funds to maximize and assist their homeless to the fullest.
So some of the accomplishments that we have so far from Columbia Park, from other areas that we have removed, do you think we could have achieved those success without 3290?
No, sir. I don't believe we could.
We have other resources like motels and so forth, but you're saying,
Motels would be difficult, as explained earlier, to provide the wraparound services, on-site support, and the cost would escalate. It would also, it'd be difficult to manage. Now we have a centralized location with security, and we're able to provide 24/7 support. And it makes it more enticing to individuals who really want to seek help. But we give them a one-stop shop. And clearly with the results, we hope, again, we need partnership with the county, we need additional federal support to continue to build the supply of permanent supportive housing. These individuals, and that hasn't been shared, likeliness is they're going to need support for the rest of their life. If they're experienced 14 years of homelessness, they're in the average ages 50s, some up to 80s. There's not going to be some miracle all of a sudden. Well, as much as we hope we get them education support and job training and so forth, a lot of these folks are going to be in need of help. We're just the first entry point, helping them get off the streets into a shelter or overhead, tiny home, shelter in the sense of having a place with a roof over their heads. Mind you, there's areas where we had to help transport individuals to shelters to get emergency help while they're waiting to get into. But those are few and far in between. So yes, it has helped us a great deal.
so follow-up question. So what will happen if, let's say, we abandon this pilot program? What will we do with those unhoused folks they are right now dwelling there?
We will try to find them alternate housing options, which are very limited. Typically, they're targeted for based on residency. Chances are some of these individuals will end up back in our public spaces.
Councilman, this is the Patrick Sullivan, City Attorney. The motel option also isn't acceptable for the high acuity people, and we've actually had incidents where they have done significant damage to the hotel rooms, which we've then been liable for. And one or two of those motels have asked us not to come back. So that's the other issue there. For the high acuity people, they don't have the services provided on site, and that's an issue.
And that will still cost us $1.6 million roughly, what we estimated earlier. It's going to be more than what we're paying right now.
Right, and that wouldn't include all the damages.
On the damage. Okay. What's your vision for the next year? Why you want to extend that for 2 years? Why we cannot accomplish all these goals that you have?
Councilman, likeliness of homelessness ending in 12 months probability is very low. I made the recommendation for the 2-year renewal option based on the availability of funding. While it's not an attempt not to provide you updates, as we've been very transparent and forthcoming in sharing these updates. Sorry, Councilman, I want to make sure I tilt my head fully. And we've gone to great lengths to ensure that our messaging, with the release of the recent video, trying to explain the causes, the process. Our community, and again, credit to Zulma and Viet and Valerie, all of the CLOs. When we reach out to community groups, it's a complicated issue. the average person will approach it from, well, you have anti-camping ordinance, you have a bed, get people off the streets, why aren't people seeking help? Without realizing there's the level of acuity, the documentation ready, family reunification efforts. This is a comprehensive approach. So minus a 3290 or 12-month, 24-month, 36-month, I hope we're in a position where we can collapse that operation. Unfortunately, with 50,000 or so individuals experiencing homelessness in LA County, Torrance, thank goodness, having a significantly smaller chunk of that number, this is going to be with us for a long time. However, it seems like the state and the county and other cities are going to great lengths to increase housing, support services, mental health, and such, so we can hopefully eradicate the challenges associated with homelessness.
And I agree, this is not, it's not gonna be solved even 2, 3 years. Seems like it's a long haul project. But the anticipated opportunities that you're listing here, explore Project Home Key, why can't it be done in 1 year?
Well, we're doing that, some of this is obviously within council purview as far as policy. It does have a tie-in to our regional housing allocation to Sacramento. We've discussed that many times. We want to make sure that there's some policy implications about the concentration of some of these units in a particular area of the community versus a combination of factors, which will be tied to our housing corridor conversation. Do we create the market rate mixed with some workforce housing, mixed with some Section 8 vouchers? That's another area we didn't discuss, the lack of available Section 8 housing. Because while Michelle has the 33 vouchers, some of the landlords are hesitant to offer their units. So there's some education we can do to landlords that, you know, these folks will have support services, and your property will be safe, and it's an option. So we are going to, again, the alternative sites with the transit center, as Mr. Santana mentioned, with DTSC, and we'll continue to work with our private sector partners and seeking partnership and even alternative locations, or to expand even. I think that's another opportunity.
Like I said earlier, I'm a big fan of what we are doing, and I really appreciate all the hard work we're putting into it. But for me, I think the process is slow. I mean, we see from Safe Insight by LA, you see in one day they show the streets are cleaned. They take people out, put them in some other facilities. The next day they show the streets are clean.
Yes.
But with us, it's a little slower.
Well, I think, again, the scale should be considered. Our neighbors are dealing with significant encampments, so it's easier to see the impact when the area has been full of RVs or tents for an extended period of time. I know LA City and Long Beach have declared local emergencies from expediting some of their permitting process, and they've brought on all hands-on EOC. Thank goodness Torrance is not at that magnitude.
Sure.
When I can name specific locations, exactly. So I think our response has to match the extent of the problem or the challenge. While it is frustrating to have some areas where we've dealt with some individuals for many reasons why they're not at 3290, but we've been relentless in our pursuit on literally daily basis to reach out and say, these conditions are unacceptable, you need help, and how can we help you? So I think we are at the forefront, and I'm glad we're not having some wholesale, changes because of the magnitude of these. I'm glad that our neighbors are stepping out in that area.
Do you think that if we have our own ordinance, whatever we have observed, experienced so far, is there any ordinance that we can do to help our police officers, help our outreach staff to accelerate this process?
I don't think ordinance is the mechanism on paper. It's a matter of having additional permanent supportive housing units, having mental health workers. There's a significant shortage right now in America related to availability of trained clinical mental health workers. It's the pipeline of not having the ability. We can have all the enforcement tools or ordinances, but without the mechanism to get people the help, it may not be as effective as we hope.
Right. I think the pilot phase means it's a test, a temporary test, how we're gonna accomplish what we want. And from 1 year to another extension, 2 years, seems like it's not a pilot anymore, it's a permanent phase. So I am a little hesitant to go towards another 2 years. I wanna have a little more, some tweaks with the current programs that we have. Right now, we have 13. That was the initial, we are evolving. Hopefully next year, we have more people housed in these tiny homes. If that is the goal, what can we do to achieve that in 1 year extension rather than having 2 years extension? Can we accomplish that? Is there any mechanism, any help that we can do to help you guys? Anything as a city leader?
Extending I believe we made significant impacts and from where we started, from zero. So from my vantage point, you know, as we shared, we are recommending extension. We feel confident based on the funding is a factor. So again, we could do this discussion every week. We can do it every month. We can do it every 6 months. We can do it every year. We can call it pilot for the next 5 years, if that gives any comfort. But if we are going to be proactive in this space, then we have the mechanism, the staffing, the knowledge. We've come a long ways from an empty parking lot to housing 40 individuals. It's because of your efforts. I mean, the collective effort that 40 individuals are not sleeping on our streets. And I think that's an effective program, in my opinion.
Allow me to jump in just a little bit. I think about 20 minutes ago, I did make a suggestion, you know, because the COVID-19 health policies are different. So where it makes sense, you know, whether, you know, when I suggested if wherever bunking is possible, if we need to buy another one, I know it can't be from 40 to 80 immediately, but it could be a number between 40 and 80 where it makes sense. We can have an immediate impact because, you know, when you have no housing to having something, it's better than nothing, right? So that was a suggestion I went out, and the staff would have to see what
We
situation
will,
makes
yes.
sense.
LA
right?
County is also
Yeah.
exploring safe parking
Yeah.
options
And,
for
and then
individuals
and
in
then
RVs.
the Project Home Key, I think we have to carefully think that, right? Because it's always where, right? And we'll just say it, right? Where, you know? I think it's not as simple, but I would have to say that we have made a lot of progress. You know, recently I've had many visitors to our city for the first time, whether they're from Korea or from Taiwan or even just, you know, other parts of the county. And one of the things they did say, even the mayor of Hwaseong, he goes, "Yeah, this city is different." Of course, you know, we're always harder on ourselves that we could always do better. So, and I think we will continue to do better.
So much, you know, devotion, and that's what exactly making this program successful. But I think this is the beginning, but we need to have more success. Switching gear a little bit, talking about the crime rate in our vicinity. In the beginning, when we had this shelter, tiny homes here, there were a lot of concerns from the proximity, the neighborhoods. Have we seen any decrease or increase in the crime in the neighboring areas? Do we have any figure, anything, Chief, if you can?
Jay Hart, Chief of Police. Sir, we have not seen any increase in the nearby neighborhood from the community concerns. I give the credit to the community and to the police officers who've done a really good job of being very proactive in those areas. And it also think it has to do with the design of the facility and the people that are there and how they're on board with what they're there for, which is to get help. And we haven't seen any of those concerns that were shared at the very beginning actually come to fruition. But we do monitor that very closely.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Chief.
Your Honorable Mayor and council members, I understand the frustration and how we'd like things to move quicker, but I do see things maybe potentially getting worse for the state of California and the county, especially with the lifting of the eviction moratorium recently through the state and the county. You have a lot of residents who some who took advantage of that or mismanaged their funds and are finding that they're not able to now make those back payments that they're going to need to be made to get caught back up to rent. That's going to cause a huge problem in the future here for a lot of folks. And that could potentially lead to a higher rate of homelessness, some temporary, you know, while they get back on their feet, others maybe not so. But I think that's going to actually convolute and complicate this issue much more. So I think with that also the 2-year extension, because it's going to need that time probably for this economy to be able to get back up and for those folks to get back on their feet. So just other things to think about that we're having to deal with now because we're receiving those calls